Hello class 7th, welcome to English lecture. Today I am going to explain you from your textbook, that is Prime English, chapter 3, The Night the Bed Fell by James Thurber. Student, before I start the chapter, I would like to introduce you about the author who has written this story, and this is a story about a misconception and misunderstanding. But before we start the chapter, let's know about the author who has written this story. James Thurber. James Thurber was an American author, cartoonist, journalist, and playwright. Thurber's cartoon and short stories were published regularly in the New Yorker. He went almost completely blind due to an injury in one of his eyes. But that never stopped him from writing or drawing. One of the most popular humorists of his time, Thurber won many awards, including a Tony and an Emmy Award. Thurber was born in Columbus, that is in Ohio, to Charles L. Thurber and Mary Agnes. They are parents of James Thurber. Both of his parents greatly influenced his work. His work was a sporadically employed clerk and minor politician who dreamed of being a lawyer or an actor. Thurber described his mother as a born comedian and one of the finest comic talents I think I have ever known. This is the word spoken by James Thurber. He said she was a practical joker and on one occasion pretended to be crippled and attended a faith healer. Now, when Thurber was 7 years old, he one of his brothers were playing a game of William Tell when his brother shot James in the eye with an arrow. Now I have told you student already that he went almost blind due to an injury caused by his brother. Actually they were playing a game of William Tell, and due to which his brother shot an arrow on his eye and he lost that eye, and the injury later caused him to become almost entirely blind. He was unable to participate in sports and other activities in his childhood because of this injury, but he developed a creative mind which he used to express himself in writings. Now student, this is something you should also learn. In spite of he's having a defeat in his life, but he never stepped back. He always tried to learn and achieve something good. So we have also learned from James Thurber that due to an incident he lost his eyes, but that never stopped him, and he took interest in several activities. Like he started his creative mind, he uses to express himself in writings, and even neurologist Ramchandra suggests that Thurber's imagination may be partly explained by Charles Bonnet syndrome. Charles Bonnet syndrome is a neurological condition, student, which causes complex visual hallucination in people who have suffered some level of visual loss. So, this is a small gist. Now, from 1913 to 1918, Thurber attended Ohio State University, where he was a member of the Phi fraternity. It was during this time he rented the house on 77 Jefferson Avenue, which became Thurber's house in 1984. Now, which became Thurber's house in, I've told you, in 1984. He never graduated from the university because his poor eyesight prevented him taking a mandatory, so reserve officers training corps course have been left it out. Now, from 1918 to 1920, Thurber worked as a court clerk for the United States Department of State, first in Washington, D.C., and then at the embassy in Paris. Now, in 1925, he moved to New York. Thurber moved to Greenwich Village in New York City, getting a job as a reporter for the New York Evening Post. He joined the staff of the New Yorker in 1927 as an editor with the help of E.B. White. His friend and fellow New Yorker contributed. His career as a cartoonist began in 1930. Now his career, I told you that he's the cartoonist also, and in 1930 his career began in cartoon field. After White found some of the Thurbers drawing in a trash can and submitted them for publication. White inked in some of these earlier drawings to make them reproduce better for the magazine, and years later expressed deep regret that he had done such a thing. Thurber contributed both his writing and his drawing to the New Yorker until the 1950s. Now, Thurber married Athea Adams in 1922, but the marriage, as he later wrote to a friend, does not last long, and marriage ended in a divorce in May 1935. Now, Thurber was stricken with a blood clot on the brain on October 4, 1961, underwent emergency surgery, drifting in and out of consciousness, and this is a student, this is a small gist, and I would also like to tell you when he got died. Thurber died a few weeks later on November 2. He was approximately 66 years because of the complication from pneumonia. Now, student, this I have given you a small gist about the James Thurber life, marriage, and career, and definitely the death also. Let's start the chapter, but before I start the chapter, I would like to give you a little gist about the story which James Thurber has written beautifully, and he has also, portrayed the combination of misconception and misunderstanding among the joint family. Basically, he is portraying his own story only. Yes, student, this is a story which he narrator is I himself is portrayed. It is humorous in tone. James Thurber's short story The Night the Bed Fell describes an event that took place in the narrator's home in Columbus. Thurber's first cousin Briggs, who also lives with the family, believes that he will suffocate in the night for absolutely no reason. Thurber can discern. Now, student, I would also like to tell you that in his family there are 7 members, and which include himself also. It is definitely, as I've told you, that it is humorous in tone. He's a cartoonist, and he is very good in portraying the humorous story, and but he gives the serious message also at the end, and so is in The Night the Bed Fell. He describes that event took place in the narrator's home. The story is the first chapter in the collection My Life, Hard Times from 1933, which is considered an autobiographical work exploring the author's eccentric family and the town they lived in. Now, let's start with the first chapter, first paragraph only. Student, we all have memories of funny incident that happened in our lives. Do you accept this? Yes, we have some kind of different memories. Some are having good memories, some are having bad memories. But definitely, I'm here talking about, because we are studying a humorous story. So I'm asking you about, that funny incident which ever held in your life, and you still imagine and think of that incident, and you started laughing in your memory only. So before we start the chapter, you should remember that incident and keep that incident, and then continue with the chapter. Now, in the very first paragraph, I suppose that the high water mark of my youth in Columbus, Ohio. Now, high water mark means, student, the maximum recorded level or value. I'm going to explain you even the meaning also. Ohio was the right, the bed fell on my father. It makes a better recitation unless necessary to throw furniture around, shake doors, and bark like a dog. To lend the proper atmosphere and vermicitude meaning the appearance of being true or real, to what is admittedly a somewhat incredible tale, still it did take place. It happened then that my father had decided to sleep in the attic one night, to be away where he could think. My mother opposed the notion. Now, student, notion means a belief about something, means when you believe strongly something about. Because she said the old wooden bed up there was unsafe, it was wobbly, and the heavy hardboard would crash down on father's head in case the bed fell. Now, she knows that that bed is unsafe, and if he fell down, then he must be have some injury on his head. There was no dissuading. Dissuading means persuading someone to not take a particular course of action. However, and at a quarter past 10, he closed the attic door behind him and went up the narrow, twisting stairs. Now, in the very first paragraph, Thurber tells the story writing from the perspective of himself as a boy, taking a subjective angle on the events that proceed. The story is told chronologically. Chronological means in a in a date wise, year wise. The story takes up place with a brief introduction describing some of the strange behaviors of the author's family that contribute to the chaotic plot of the brief tale. Thurber reveals that his grandfather, his father's dad, is delusional and often departs for days from the family home. Now he is describing about his family and family members and the and the chaos which has been created in their family. Let's go to another slide. Omnious creaking as he crawled into bed. Now, student, meaning of omnious means giving an impression. Now, it gives the impression grandfather, who usually slept in the attic bed when he was with us, had disappeared some days before. Now, student, why do you think mother did not object to grandfather sleeping in the attic? Now, let's continue. Then only you come to know why his mother did not object to grandfather sleeping on the attic. We had visiting us at the time a nervous first cousin of mine named Brix Bell, who believed that he was likely to cease breathing when he was asleep. It was his feeling that if he were not awake in every hour during the night, he might die of suffocation. He had been accustomed to setting an alarm clock to ring at intervals until morning, but I persuaded him to abandon this. He slept in my room, and I told him that I was such a light sleeper that if anybody quit means anything which you left it out, breathing in the same room with me, I would wake instantly. He tested me the first night, which I had suspected he would, by holding his breath after my regular breathing had convinced him I was asleep. Now, in this paragraph, author is explaining that Thurber revealed that his grandfather, his father's dad, is delusional, I've told you, and often departs for days from the family home, returning to talk about the Civil War as it were still being wedged outside. Thurber's first cousin means Briggs, who also lives with the family, means his first cousin also live in the same family, believes that he will suffocate in the night for absolutely no reason, that Thurber can discern. Now, student, I have told you very first also that there are seven members in the family and all are having different mindset with a different thought and dream and fear, definitely fear. Mother thinks that grandfather will fell down and he will have a some injury on his head. His first cousin think that when he'll sleep he'll have die with a suffocation, and his father leave from the family, still he thinks that he was in some civil war. So these are the different different mindset which is shown by portrayed by James Thurber. Now, next paragraph, you can see, I was not asleep, however, and called to him. This seemed to allay. Allay means put to rest his fears a little, but he took the precaution of putting a glass of spirit of camphor on a little table at the head of his bed. Now, student, they are having some kind of misconception that if they'll keep the camphor, what is camphor? It is a something like a strong, strong taste smell, which they keep in the table side on their bed, and then the glass of spirit of camphor on a little table, and in case if they didn't arouse him until he was gone, he said he would sniff the camphor, a powerful reviver. Reviver means something that restores consciousness. Now he thinks that when he smell that camphor, he'll come to the consciousness. Now, student, do you think the narrator was telling the truth to Briggs? Means he's telling truth to Briggs, means he's portraying the actual situation, what he's actually thinking. Okay, let's continue on the next slide, then we'll came to know. Now, Briggs was not the only member of his family who had his crotchets. Crotchets means belief or fears that have no basis. It is a kind of fear which has no any evidence or any proof, but is still they are having this kind of thought. old Aunt Melissa, who could whistle like a man with two fingers in her mouth. Now, Melissa, they have in a bracket, they have mentioned that she can whistle with her two fingers like a man. Suffered under the premonition. Premonition. Now, she is suffering from premonition means a strong feeling that something bad is about to happen. Now, she is a future predictor and kind of future predictor. She thinks that she can easily find that what is going to be destined to die. Now she thinks that she's going to die in South High Street because she was born in a South High Street. She got married in South High Street. So she thought that she's going to die in South High Street. Then there is Aunt Sarah Schoff, who never went to bed at night without the fear that a burglar was going to get in and blow chloroform under her door through a tube. Now there is another Aunt Sarah, who thought that if she'll go, she never sleeps, and what she thinks that when she's going to about to sleep, then some burglar will come and throw a chloroform, and then she'll got faint with the help of tube, and then she will lose her consciousness. To avoid this, avoid student avoid means prevent. To prevent this calamity, for she was in greater dread of anesthetics. Anesthetics is a kind of unconsciousness anesthesia, you must be knowing. Then of losing her household goods, she always piled her money, silverware, and other valuables in a neat stack just outside her bedroom with a note reading. Which note she has written? This is all I have. Please take it and do not use your chloroform, as this is all I have. Now, this is so funny. She has written a note for the burglar. She thinks that somebody will come and throw a chloroform, and then she'll go in unconscious position. So she has written a note for him. She said that this is all I have. Please take it and do not use your chloroform, as this is all I have. Now, student, let's go to another part. Now, there is another family member, Aunt Gracie Schoff, also had a burglar phobia. Now, again, she is having a burglar phobia, but she met it with more fortitude. Fortitude means courage. With more courage, she was confident that burglars had been getting into her house every night for 4 years. The fact that she never missed anything was to her no proof to the contrary. Now, she says that she's a confident lady, and she thinks that in a 4 year, every day the burglar is coming to her house. Although she's not having any evidence, any proof for that, but she's confident for that. And she always claimed that she scared them off before they could take anything by throwing shoes down the hallway. When she went to bed, she piled where she could get at them handily. All the shoes were about her house. Now, can you see in the picture that this lady is throwing shoes, in a hall, in some of the hall, and if somebody will come and take away that, that shoes, and 5 minutes after she had turned off the light, 5 minutes after she turned off the light, she would sit up in bed and say, hark, her husband, who had learned to ignore the whole situation as long ago as 1903. Would either be sound sleep or pretend to be sound asleep. In either case, he would not respond to her tugging and pulling, so that presently she would arise tiptoe to the door. Now, here, student, I would also like to tell you that this is the backdrop of the story, which begins when Thurber tumbles out of the army cord that he uses for a bed and crashes to the floor in the middle of the night, waking his paranoid mother, hearing the sound of James hitting the floor. Means these two aunt, some aunt is having a phobia that some burglar are coming regularly in their house. Some are having phobia that they will suffer, and she's going to die in South High Street where she is born also. Let's go to the another page or another slide. But I'm straying from the remarkable incident that took place during the night that the bed fell on father. By midnight, we were all in bed. The layout of the rooms and the disposition of their occupant is important to an understanding. Disposition means a student, qualities of a person's character, and an understanding of what later occurred in the front room upstairs. Were my mother and my brother Herman, who sometimes sang in his sleep. Now, brother and his mother and brother Herman, who sang in sleep, Herman, who used to sing on sleep. Briggsbell and myself were in a room adjoining this one. Briggsbell and myself means narrator, means James Thurber, he himself. Means Brixwell and James Thurber were in a room adjoining this one. My brother Roy was in a room across the hall from the ours. Our bull terrier Rex slept in the hall. Means Rex is sleeping on the hall. My bed was on army cot, one of those affairs. Affairs means in this a device. They have used affair for the device, which are made wide enough to sleep on comfortably only by putting up flat with the middle section. The two sides, which ordinarily hang down like the sideboards of a drop leaf table, when these sides are up, it is perilous. Perilous means risky to roll too far towards the edge. For them, the cot is likely to tip completely over, bringing the whole bed down on top of one with a tremendous banging crash. This, in fact, is precisely what happened about 2 o'clock in the morning. It was my mother who, in recalling the scene later, first referred to as in the night the bed fell on your father. Now, in this paragraph, now, student, this is the backdrop of the story I've told you, which begins when Thurber tumbles out on the army cot that he uses for a bed and crashes to the floor in the middle of the night, waking his paranoid mother, hearing the sound of James hitting the floor. His mother wakes with a start, absolutely certain that the sound she heard was the crash of the heartboat in the attic bedroom, which she believes must have crushed her husband to death in the sleep. Positive that her husband is now dead, she begins to scream and shout hysterically, waking Herman Thurber's brother. Now, in this page, you can see that he thought that mother had become for no apparent reason hysterical. Hysterical means student. Uncontrollably emotional means suddenly she got emotional. She thinks that you know father will fell down from the bed and he'll get dead, and then she all of a sudden she became very emotional and she yelling out loudly. Briggs, awaking in the midst of loud shout of fear and apprehension, came to the quick conclusion that he was suffocating and that we were all trying to bring him out. Now he thinks that suddenly, when he heard a lot of noise coming from the room, he started feeling like a suffocation. Now everyone tries to bring him out. With a low moan, he grabs the glass of camphor at the head of his bed and, instead of sniffing it, poured it over himself. Now the room reeked of camphor. Reeked means students smelled. Matlab, it smelled so strongly and choked Briggs like a drowning man. For he had almost succeeded in stopping his breathing under the spirit. He leaped out of bed and groped towards the open window, but he came up against one closed. You can see in this picture that he's trying to open the window, and all of a sudden he started feeling suffocation. Do you think the narrator finally realized what was going on, student? Do you really think that narrator finally realized what was going on? Now, it was at the juncture that I, in trying to get up, had the uncanny sensation of feeling my bed above me. Foggy means unable to think properly with sleep. I now suspected in my turn that the whole uproar was being made in frantic endeavor to extricate means free me from what must be an unheard and perilous situation. Get me out of this, I bawled. Get me out. I think I had the nightmarish belief that I was enrolled in a mine. Gap springs flooding in his camphor by the time. Floundering means student drowning. Now, as I've already told you, that in this paragraph, hearing the sound of James hitting the floor, his mother wakes with a start, absolutely certain that the sound she heard was the crash of a headboard in the attic bedroom, which she believed must have crushed her husband. I've told you. Now, Herman, who knows his mother and mind well, believes that she finally lost it and reassures her that everything is fine and she is all right, all while she is shouting for someone to save her husband from his enterprise underneath the heavy headboard she believed fell down. Herman wakes up Briggs, Thurber, paranoid first cousin, because he needs help soothing Thurber's mother. Now he wants that Thurber's mother should calm down, but Briggs was already in his own dream, and when he heard so much of shouting, he started feeling suffocation. Now, however, believes that the hullabaloo must be because he stopped breathing in the middle of the night. which he has long suspected would happen. To counteract his certain death, Briggs covers himself in a camphor water to revive himself. Now, can you see that the misunderstanding going in the family? It is so, so complicated that all things are going in a room in a very different and different mindset. Now, in the last paragraph, I found at last the light switch in my room, unlocked the door, and Briggs and I joined the others at the attic door. The dog who never did like Briggs jumped for him, assuming that he was the culprit. Now, dog thought that he's the culprit. Culprit student means guilty person. Now, the situation was finally put together like a gigantic jigsaw puzzle. Father caught a cold from prowling. Prowling means walking about around in his bare feet, but there were no other bad results. I'm glad, said Mother, who always looked on the bright side of things, that your grandfather wasn't there. Now, in the last paragraph, meanwhile, the thurber mother is racing up the stair, tugging on the door to the attic bedroom student, which appears to be stuck shut. Now, Harbin follows mother, whom he is worried is losing her mind. Now, he thought that his mother is losing her mind. The banging on the attic door finally wakes Thurber's father, the deepest sleeper of the family. He's he sleeps a lot, who believes the house must be on fire. He calls, I'm coming, sleepily from his bed, making Thurber's mother believe he is talking to God about departing this world, only making her more frantic. Now, in the finally, the Thurber's father exits the attic bedroom unharmed, though confused. He is unharmed, but he is confused. Everyone is soothed and informed of the reality of the situation. Despite the absurdity of the situation, all Thurber's mother can say is that she is glad that her father in law, Thurber's grandfather, is not home to see the excitement. He thanks that at least his grandfather is not there to see all this excitement. Now, James Thurber was an American author, I've told you, cartoonist, journalist, and playwright. He is humorist, and this story also kind of humor, which depicts, different mindset of a people. And this story is, it gives a morale also, and it gives a comic also. Now, student, I would like to tell you that this story is a memoir written in the first person. It has a subjective angle and is ordered chronologically. I've told you earlier also. There are seven main characters, including James and several other family members, such as his mother, father, two brothers, cousin, uncle, three aunt, and his grandfather. Now, I've told you that there are seven members in his family. The plot for The Night the Bed Fell starts with James Thurber explaining his interesting family, including a crazy cousin that thinks he will die of suffocation during his sleep, an aunt who throws shoes down the house hallway each night in an attempt to scare away burglars, and a grandfather that leaves the house for several days at a time before returning and discussing the Civil War as if it was still ongoing. And Means I've told you that his grandfather still thinks that he's in a civil war. One night when Thurber force of his army caught, his mother wakes up and comes to the immediate conclusion that the heavy headboard up in the attic had crashed down on the father, fatally injuring him. She begins shouting, and upon hearing the shout, Herman, the narrator's brother, thinks his mother has become hysterical and assures her that she is okay. Now he then wakes up Briggs Bell, who is the narrator nervous first cousin. Briggs wakes up thinking that the hue and cry in the house is due to his ceasing breath. And so he pours over himself a glass of camper spirit to revive himself. Roy and the dog wake up at last. The father, who is the deepest sleeper in the house, is on the fire. When he says that he is coming to, his wife thinks that he is going up to heaven. After a while, the incident gets sorted out, and the mother, quite optimistic by nature, feels thankful that her father in law was not at home. Now, student, this is an interesting story as well and humorous also. I have already explained you the whole chapter line by line with a difficult word. Now, what I want from you all, please try to take out the question answers, search out the answer by your own, try to write it, use your time and utilize your time during lockdown, and improve your reading skills, your vocabulary, your pronunciation. This is a good time where you can utilize your time in some fruitful work. And whatever videos I'm making for you all, I'm giving you the explanation of all the chapter. I just want in return answer you prepare by yourself. And if you still have some kind of doubt and you find that something has been missed out from me, please note it down chapter wise and your questions. When the school will get open, I will explain you each and everything. And please make a copy, fair copy, and try to take out the question answers, doubt, anything. Please make that a copy, please make a fair copy, so that we should always keep this in mind, that when I was explaining in a video, you are actually listening that video in a regular basis and finding out the answer in your best way. So, this is The Night the Bed Fell by James Thurber. I have given you the little description about the author also and the story also. Please try to search out the question answers as soon as possible. Thank you and have a good day.